Welcome to a new episode of Mind Talks. Today we will deep dive into court case Common Cause versus Union of India 2017, a case that redefined the landscape of Indian mining law. The story of Common Cause versus Union of India begins with serious allegations of illegal mining in Odisha. This wasn't just a small issue. We're talking about large scale violations of environmental laws. For years, reports from civil society and the media pointed to a troubling trend: mining without proper clearances, environmental degradation, and forest destruction.
Absolutely. In fact, it was the Justice M.B. Shah Commission set up in 2010 that really brought the gravity of the situation into focus. Their investigation uncovered widespread illegal mining in the state. Companies were extracting minerals far beyond the legal limits and without the necessary clearances, which meant there were huge gaps in environmental protection.
The scale was staggering, especially when you consider the environmental toll it took on tribal areas. The Commission's findings not only highlighted environmental damage but also pointed out massive revenue losses to the state. That's what pushed Common Cause, a Delhi based NGO, to step in.
Exactly. They filed a public interest litigation, PIL, demanding accountability and asking for stronger regulations. This wasn't just about punishing the offenders, it was about cleaning up the mess and ensuring that such illegal activities didn't continue unchecked.
Fast forward to August 2017 when the Supreme Court delivered its landmark judgment. It was a game changer for the mining sector. The court held that companies mining iron and manganese ore without environmental and forest clearances or exceeding the permitted quantities were guilty of illegal mining.
The penalty? A whopping 100% of the price of the illegally mined minerals. That was a huge blow to the companies involved, with the total recoveries estimated to exceed rupees 17,000 crore. The Supreme Court made it clear no one could get away with this.
And the best part? The court didn't just slap on fines, they gave a clear deadline. All penalties had to be paid by December 31st, 2017. The judgment also had a specific focus on the companies that operated without any legal clearance since the year 2000.
Right? And the judgment was direct. Illegal mining couldn't be condoned. The companies had to bear the consequences, and they couldn't benefit from any illegal activities.
The judgment sparked immediate action. The state began issuing notices, and in some cases, they even began attaching properties of defaulting mining firms to recover penalties.
Yes. And in addition to that, the court instructed that all the penalties recovered from these companies should be used for tribal welfare and regional development. This was crucial. There was a need for reparative justice. The tribes affected by the mining activities should benefit from these fines, not just the government.
Another important point was that the court didn't initially call for a CBI investigation. They wanted to focus on enforcement first, regulating the mining operations and fixing the environmental damages before considering criminal prosecution.
The decision made it clear. It was about systemic change, and that meant immediate, on-the-ground enforcement, not just theoretical punishment.
The impact of Common Cause stretched well beyond Odisha. In fact, the judgment led to the revision of India's national mineral policy. The court pointed out that the policy from 2008 was outdated and didn't adequately protect the environment or communities affected by mining.
That's right. In 2019, the Indian government launched a new national mineral policy that focused more on environmental protection, community welfare, and sustainability. This policy also introduced stricter regulations for mining operations to ensure that they wouldn't be as prone to these sorts of illegalities in the future.
The judgment also reinforced the importance of environmental and forest clearances. The court made it clear that these clearances should never be bypassed or ignored, something that was happening a lot with the ex post facto clearances, which allowed companies to operate without clearances and then get them retroactively.
And that was a huge loophole that the court's ruling closed that door, making it mandatory for companies to obtain the necessary clearances before starting any mining activities. This was a massive shift towards stricter environmental governance.
Now, while the judgment was groundbreaking, its execution has faced several challenges. Even though the deadline for the fines passed as of 2025, a substantial amount of the penalties remain unpaid, around rupees 4,000 crore in Odisha alone.
That's a significant issue. Some of the defaulting companies either no longer own the mines or have no attachable assets, which complicates the recovery process. It's been tough for the authorities to actually get the money they're owed.
And the recovery process is also slowing down because the companies involved in illegal mining have been barred from future mining auctions. It's a tough pill to swallow for those companies who lost their licenses, but it's also meant that future mining operations are now under much stricter scrutiny.
One of the key outcomes is that the ruling set a new standard for compliance. No longer is it just about keeping the boundaries of a mining lease intact. Companies now have to consider environmental licenses, monitoring, and compliance as a core part of their operations.
The lasting legacy of the Common Cause case lies in its emphasis on environmental responsibility, community welfare, and intergenerational equity. Mining in India is no longer just about extracting resources, it's about balancing that with the protection of the environment and the rights of tribal communities.
That's the crux of the matter, isn't it? The Supreme Court's ruling marked a shift from reactive enforcement to proactive compliance. It's about anticipating the environmental impacts of mining and taking steps to prevent damage before it occurs.
And this is where civil society's role becomes crucial. Litigation, like what we saw in Common Cause, is not just about holding the government or mining companies accountable. It's about making sure that the law upholds the public interest, closing legal loopholes, and setting new standards for environmental justice.
Absolutely. The case has put India's mining industry on notice. If they want to continue operating, they must ensure sustainability and compliance at every step of the way.
And that wraps up our dive into Common Cause versus Union of India 2017, a case that redefined the landscape of Indian mining law. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for more explorations into the judgments shaping our nation.
For our listeners in Odisha and other mineral rich regions, remember, legal and environmental accountability in mining isn't just a courtroom issue, it's about safeguarding communities, forests, and the future of India.
Thank you for listening to Mind Talks. Stay informed, stay empowered.